Hello, and welcome back to Measuring Learner Data and Assessment. This is Week 1, Lecture 2, Types of Assessment. In the last lecture, we covered the definition of data, the view of different types of data through a vertical and horizontal viewpoint, the qualitative and quantitative definitions of data, and different methods of collection. This lecture will discuss the following questions. What are the different types of assessment? And how do we use this information to choose a type of assessment? So what are the different types of assessment? First, why are there different types? Well, different types serve different purposes. Every assessment that is given has purpose behind it. To use the wrong assessment in the wrong situation serves no purpose, is wasteful of precious time and resources, and worse, could be detrimental to the students. To that end, it is important that we understand the various types of assessment. First, a discussion of authentic versus standardized. Authentic assessments are defined by the American Library Association as an evaluation process that involves multiple forms of performance measurement reflecting the student's learning, achievement, motivation, and attitudes on instructionally relevant activities. Examples of authentic assessment techniques include performance assessment, portfolios, and self-assessment. This used to be the type of assessment teachers tended towards within the classroom, but with the onset of Common Core and the push towards 21st century skills, we are seeing more and more authentic type tasks on high-stake exams. Standardized assessments are defined by the Glossary of Education Reform, as developed by the Great Schools Partnership of Maine, as any form of test that 1. Requires all test takers to answer the same questions, or a selection of questions from common bank of questions, in the same way, and that 2. Is scored in a standard or consistent manner, which makes it possible to compare the relative performance of individual students or groups of students. While different types of tests and assessments may be standardized in this way, the term is primarily associated with large-scale tests administered to sizable populations of students. With the push towards high-stakes testing since the passage of No Child Left Behind, we have seen an exponential increase in the amount of standardized testing that takes place at all levels of education. This push has permeated classrooms as well, where time that would formerly have been used to engage in authentic assessment is now being used for standardized assessment. Formal versus informal assessment. Formal assessments are those assessments that consist of the standardized tests and on-demand assessments administered to all students in specific grades as part of the statewide and local district assessment programs. These examinations measure the mastery of critical skills and concepts at key developmental milestones. Individual progress is shown, but students are also compared to others in their grade. The specific types of formal assessment, diagnostic, interim, and summative, will be discussed in detail in Week 2. Informal assessment consists of the evidence teachers collect in class on a continuous basis to measure the progress of their students in mastering the skills and content taught. It provides continuous feedback to students, teachers, and parents. Each student is compared only to his or her own prior level of achievement. Formative assessment, as informal assessment, will be addressed in more detail during Week 2. Most classroom experiences will consist of a mixture of both types of assessment. While importance seems to have shifted in the public eye towards formal assessment, we as teachers know that the value of informal assessment on a daily basis can hardly be understated. Norm versus criterion referenced assessments. Norm referenced assessments refer to standardized tests that are designed to compare and rank test takers in relation to one another. Norm reference tests report whether test takers performed better or worse than a hypothetical average student, which is determined by comparing scores against the performance results of a statistically selected group of test takers, typically of the same age or grade level, who have already taken the exam. For example, diagnostic assessments used to assess and classify students with special needs are norm-referenced. Criterion-referenced assessments are those in which results are often based on the number of correct answers provided by students, and scores might be expressed as a percentage of the total possible number of correct answers. This would be the type of assessment classroom teachers are most familiar with. I often think of these types of assessment as follows. Data from norm-referenced assessment assist in making placement and program decisions for students, whereas data from criterion-referenced assessments assist in making classroom and curriculum decisions. So how do we choose? Again, purpose should drive process. It would be informative to create a system for reflection on assessments you utilize. Focus on the questions, what data am I trying to collect? What does this data tell me? And what course of action does the data support? A clear understanding of the types of assessment that are out there, in a broad sense, should provide educators with a better picture of the means available to them when designing their lessons, units, and curricula. The best customer is a well-informed customer, I think someone once said, and I would posit that the same can be said of assessment selection and creation and the educator.